Wow. You really think I'm going to do that? In a perfect world, no such thing. There's I think 2 people out right now. Give them an opportunity to get back. But yeah, the water fountain is right there, which is fantastic because I love the fact that it's right there. Yes, they just installed that. Okay. Today, my objective is to set up the next part of the project by going through what would be expected of you on the car portion. The what? I didn't hear what you said. Super gang? Okay, back to this. So, yes, it is. It's Mario Day. There you go. MAR10. There you go. Yes. So now, I will be assigning you said project on Friday. Now, the way that, again, I'm just going to remind you this project is going to work is that you are going to be researching multiple banks according to the directions. You are going to be researching a car, and you are going to be researching a house. There is going to be a system in place where none of you can do the same car and the same house. There are plenty of cars and plenty of houses to choose from. You do not have to stay within this area, and there is no price limit to it, but there are a few restrictions, which I'll get into. Yes. Well, here's part of the restriction to it. The cars and the houses and the banks all require evidence. And when I say evidence, I'm talking about screenshots. And when I'm talking about screenshots, it's like, well, is your house actually like on the market on a realtor website? You know what I'm saying? Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to compare the current value of, let's say, the house or the car to some past value. And the houses should have, in theory, gone up in value, and the cars, in theory, should have gone down in value.
Now, if the car's not a car, the house off the market, can you still calculate it?
As long as you can find that evidence that I just talked about.
Like the original value.
Yeah. Well, in terms of the houses, it's going to be a little bit difficult in terms of original value. I'll give you an example. My sister owns a house in Pennsylvania, but this house was built in the 1860s. Okay, so clearly they know the current value of the home, but it is next to impossible to figure out what the value of the home is in 1860. So, now I'm going to talk more about this on Friday when I go over the houses, but the websites that you guys look up, you'll be able to find the oldest available price. So, for example, the oldest available price for my sister's house might be 1960, and so we start counting from 1960. Yeah, they should. They should. But obviously, there are exceptions to that rule. You know, the house might be built in 1980, but the earliest available information you have is like 1995. It happens. And I'll show you that on Friday, because I do have an example house that I want to show you. But of course, that example house you guys would not be allowed to use. The goal of today is to show you an example car. Yeah, you can get the water if you need to. The goal is to show you an example car. And with that example car, I want to show you how to do some of the calculations that you will be required to do on your project. So, in a moment, I'm going to begin showing that information. I strongly recommended to my class yesterday, hey, if I'm going to be showing you how to do certain things on the project and to navigate certain websites, perhaps this would be a great idea to write this stuff down. So I'm going to suggest you get those notebooks out and open. It's not actually officially notes, but like I said, it can be helpful for what we're about to do. I showed you the banks on Monday. I'm showing you the car today. I'm going to show you the house on Friday. Let's see what we got here. So first and foremost, let me flip my screen over so I can show you what you can do about the car. Now, cars.com is not the only website you can go to. It's not the only website. Well, here's what's going to come down to. You can go to any car seller website, but you have to have, again, like I said, the evidence to show the current value of the car. Now, are you guys familiar with Kelley Blue Book? Okay. Now, Kelley Blue Book gives a fair market value. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a fair market value because here's the thing. If I own now I don't own this car anymore, but I used to own a 1998 Toyota Corolla, okay? So if I own a 98 Toyota Corolla and my neighbor owns a 98 Toyota Corolla, it's been, what, 23 years, right? 23 years since 1998. Are both those cars the same value? Probably not. It depends. What does it depend on?
Who drove that to the ground? Someone stored in the sand in the garage.
Exactly. How far was it driven? How well was it maintained? Where did they drive it? People on the island have a rougher go of maintaining their cars than people on the mainland. Thank you. Well,
people's cars got trashed so quickly because there were so many potholes.
Well, it depends on where you are in PA.
The same thing with sports cars. You find something that like just sat in the garage and people did like their daily work. People
Yeah.
go to the track and like they drove so hard.
But that's my point, though. So you can't go Kelley Blue Book because Kelley Blue Book is fair market value, and you have to decide on the condition of the car. Whereas we're going to go to something like cars.com, not the only website you can go to, and we are actually going to find a car for sale. The first car that I ever owned was a 1992 Geo Prism. Now you may be thinking, what the heck is a Geo Prism? It was an off-brand shoot of one of the other major car companies. I have no idea which one. The Geo Prism, and I don't know, maybe. The Geo Prism, the one that I drove, the speedometer only went up to 85 miles an hour. I know. Think about that.
Wait, hold on. Say that again.
The speedometer only went up to 85 miles an hour. Yeah, this car was so small. This car was so small and so light. I felt like when I drove on the parkway and this thing was shaking, that a stiff wind would knock it over. Look at me. Look at me. You see me? You see how vertically challenged I am? I would hit my head getting out of the car. Yeah. The what?
How old are you?
5'7"?
Okay, that's tall to me. That's literally tall to me.
How small was the car now?
Like I could probably, like, standing here, I could see over the top of it. You know, it's pretty bad. Or no, it's probably here.
Baby car.
Baby car?
I don't know.
Baby car.
My best friend in high school was 6'8". And when he sat in the front seat, he had to push the seat all the way back and his knees were still up against the thing. Yeah, the what? Yeah, well,
There's always like that friend, like the duo. There's always one that's like really tall and like super small.
yeah, you should have seen the wedding photos with him and my best man. It's pretty insane. Yeah. But anyway, I wanted to look up a 1992 Geo Prism, but unfortunately, I could not find one for sale. You can see right here, I'm looking for a Geo Prism, all miles from your zip code. No max price. I just wanted to look and see what they had on cars.com. Again, not the only website you can go to, but this is the one I'm going to go to.
I think the ones that like if you have to enter the zip code, like what if there are none near your zip code?
Well, that's why it said all miles from. Now, here's something interesting. Here's something very interesting. You see this car right here, the 95 Geo Prism? Yesterday, when I did this, that 1995 Geo did not show up. Just came on the market, apparently. The one that I did the calculations with the class, I did it with this one, the 1994 Geo Prism. We're going to do it with this one. Now, here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen, though. I need evidence. You cannot just provide me a link and hope that that counts as evidence.
What about the 95? What about the new like glossy
That's just the light shining off of it.
I don't know, man. I'm kind of messing with the 95.
Okay. But now here's the deal. When you submit your project, if your evidence is a link that I have to click on, I'm not going to accept that. Why? Well, I do need a picture. What could happen? Say what? It could leave the market. Someone could buy it. And now that link is worthless. I need evidence. So you are going to screenshot. You are going to screenshot this information and include it in your project. So I'm clicking the 1994 GeoPrism. I would make sure that within the screenshot, I get the name of the car, the year that it was made, and the price that they're selling it for. You need to make sure that's screenshotted.
How many miles is that?
245,000 miles. That's actually not that bad.
Yo, they last long.
They can with proper upkeep. I drove mine into the ground.
Do you know who made those engines?
Not sure.
Not even put no, you know?
No, I don't.
Wow.
I'll Google it. Hold on. Who made GeoPrism engine? They were built by NUMI, the New United Motor Manufacturing Incorporated, a joint venture between Toyota and GM.
That's why. Toyota.
I gotcha. It does make sense.
Toyota.
But anyway, so I would screenshot this information and it would help me towards what I need to do. So now I'm going to go to my piece of paper, which, as I said, I strongly suggest that you do write down some of this information that you're going to be doing for me, because we need to write down and figure out some of these calculations. Where's my paper at? Woo, flipping around. So let's see. I am going to write down, and this is going to be for the car part of the project. Car part of the project. Today is the 10th. And I'm going to first write down this particular formula. This is the decay formula. There are three formulas that we will be using over the course of this project. One of them is the compound interest formula, which you will use for the banks. Yes. This project? Last night?
Yeah, but for Miss Cherry.
Ah, okay. Yeah. I sent this project to the other math teachers, although I have changed some of the questions. So careful. Oh, sad. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Well, I'm officially assigning it to you guys on Friday. We're all within the same chapter, but we're probably like a week apart or whatever. But anyway, I digress. There's 4 variables in this equation for the car. Now keep in mind, for the car, key thing, you need to have picked a car that has lost value over time. You cannot pick a car that has gained value over time. Okay? Just that's one of the rules. It's in the rules for the project. For the house, you must have picked a house that has gained value. Wait, did I say for the car? I should have said lost value, right? Did I say lost? Yes. Cars tend to lose value over time. Houses tend to gain. Now, there's no definitive rule for that. Depends on, how they maintain it, things of that nature. But that's what I want for the project. Yes. For the most part, you should be fine with the car. Yeah. Now, there are 4 variables up here. Y, A, R, and X. Name one of these variables, what it actually represents. Y, A, R, and X. What do one of them represent? A is initial value. Now, we do not, at this moment, we do not know the initial value of the 1994 GeoPrism LSI. We don't know it at the moment, but we will Google that stuff in a minute. Name another variable. What is R? Yeah, the rate of decay, the rate of depreciation, the rate at which the value is lost. That is what R is. Now, again, we don't currently know it. We could Google something, but the problem is every car deteriorates at a different rate. It depends on what type of car it is. It depends on who's driving it. It depends on where they're driving it. So we don't know what the rate is at the moment. Name another variable. X is time. This car was made in 1994. How many years is that? 27 years. We know that X is 27. I'll write that down in a minute. Today, the resulting value. Y is the resulting value today, which we know is $995. So let me write down some of this information. First of all, I know that X is equal to 27 years for my 1994 Geo Prism. I know that Y, the resulting value, is $995 because that is what they're selling it for today. You can't go market value because, again, market value doesn't take into account how good or bad the car has been maintained over the years. One of the other rules for this project, you have to have a car that is at least 3 years or older. So you can't get a brand new 2021 blah, blah, blah. It has to be at least 3 years old or more. Keep that in mind. Let me go back to the car here. 1994 Geo Prism LSI. That many miles, $995. That's all I can get from this thing. Huh. I don't know what the rate is, and I don't know what the initial value is. But we were talking about it last class. Say again? Search. Yes. What are those 4 letters we talked about? MSRP. The initial value is MSRP for cars. Initial value, MSRP, stands for manufacturer's suggested retail price. Basically, what ends up happening with cars is the dealer buys the car from the company that makes the cars, and then they turn around and sell it to the consumer, which is you. They make most of their money from the interest that you have to pay on the car and all of the extra hidden fees and junk like that. It's actually a pretty sick deal. But the car maker says, okay, hey, you should probably sell it for this much. Well, how do we know what that is? Well, he just said, search it. Check this out. 1994 Geo Prism LSI, and notice I put in those letters MSRP. Screenshot that. There's 2 prices on that list right there. There's one for the STD, the standard sedan, and the LSI sedan. The LSI sedan is the one that we're looking for. Screenshot it, insert it into your project. There's your evidence right there. A is equal to $11,865. It was a pretty good car. Like I said, I did enjoy driving it, although it was scary most of the time. That's pretty sweet. Yeah. I once drove a car. I drove a Prius that got 40 miles to the gallon. Yeah. I almost drove to Boston and back on 1 tank of gas. I know, right? I'll tell you that story before the end of class. I'll tell you that story, what happened to that car. Yeah. I'll tell you what happened to it. That's the story. Back to this. Now, what we need to set up is this. Based on this MSRP, which, by the way, the MSRP for cars, those are documented. You can find those online pretty easily. This is what we're going to set up. 995 equals 11,865 parentheses 1 minus r parentheses to the 27th power. This is what we have to solve. The first part of this project is you have to calculate the rate of decay. What percent of the value per year was lost over the course of 27 years? Now, this is an average because actually, if you look it up, within the first year of driving, a car typically loses about 20%. And then for the next several years, they lose about 15%. But I'm talking about over the course of 27 years, what is the average value lost? So here's what I got to do. I got to get that R by itself. What do I do first? There are three things preventing me from getting that R by itself. The 1, the 27, and the 11,865. What do you peel off first? I hear crickets. Solving it what? Oh yeah, SADMAP. PEMDAS backwards. Parentheses last.
The first thing that comes in would be division.
Yes.
So you have to divide 11,865.
Yes. Absolutely, I agree. You divide by 11,865. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if you divide by 11,865, you're going to get a decimal. Don't worry about it for now. Don't worry about it for now. You can leave it as a fraction. Because with the way that I'm going to type this into the calculator is actually going to be quite nice. And I'm going to show you that on the calculator. What do I got to peel off next? How? Ooh.
All I know is that's what comes in is exponents.
How do you peel off like a square?
Like you'd have to take this 27.
Yes. Yeah. So I said, how do you take off a square? And she said square root. And then you said, well, hold on one second.
Please excuse the interruption. Alexis Bathanis, please come to the main office. Alexis Bathanis to the main office.
Okay. She said square root. And then you said, well, you'd have to take like a 27 root. Yes. You'd actually have to take a 27th root. She's like, what the heck does that mean? Don't worry. You'll have the calculator do it for you. Watch. You got to take the 27th root of each side of this problem, and it will leave you with that. Now, I'm going to go to the calculator in a moment and actually get that 27th root. But after we get that 27th root, notice that we are still trying to get R by itself. We still have to get off the 1, and we still have to get off the negative. So after I get this decimal, I am going to subtract 1 and divide by negative 1 to get the rate. So let me go to the calculator. There it is. If you happen to remember 27th root, math is a button on the far left column, math. And the fifth option down should be X root. I put a 27 in for the root. And literally, I'm just going to type in the fraction exactly as I have it on my paper. I'm not going to change much. I'm just going to keep things exact like that. Chapow. And I get this decimal. Now, that's not my root. That is what is equal to 1 minus R. 1 second. Marcus room. Good, how are you? I'm Mr. Markey. Yeah. You want Mr. Mackey. That's okay. Bye-bye.
How many times does that happen to you?
At least once a month. At least once a month I get a call for something with Mr. Mackey.
How long have you worked here?
I have worked here for 12 years. He has worked here for 2. Anyway, that is not my answer. As I said, I had to subtract 1 and divide by -1 in order to get the actual value of R. I'm listening. Well, let me flip back to my paper real quick, and then I'll flip back to the calculator. Watch this. So you see at the bottom of my page where I have the 27th root? I got that decimal. I wrote partially that decimal, but it's still equal to 1 minus R. And then,
You have a negative R, so the only way that you can get rid of that negative is running by -1, which would be R.
exactly, which is what I did here.
Okay.
Exactly. No, I wanted to show you that so that this would make more sense. Absolutely. Yeah. You had to subtract 1 and then divide by -1 in order to get the proper rate. My rate is approximately 0.088. I'm going to round it, or 8.8%. What that means is that for the 27 years that this car has been in existence, this car, the 1994 Geo Prism LSI, where'd you go, Geo? There you are, right there. Let's take a look at some of the angle shots. I know, ooh and ah. Look at that. Wonderful. Does it have a tape deck? Oh no, somebody installed a CD player. I know, right? Wonderful. Anyway, for the 27 years that that car has been in existence, every year, on average, it loses about 8.8% of its value. Bless you. Bless you.
Are we sure that was a
I hope so. So now, what does one do with that knowledge of knowing that the car loses 8.8% of its value over the course of time? Somebody give me a 2-digit number. 26, okay. What will the value of the car be in 26 years? 26 years, I don't know if that car is even going to be around anymore. But with proper maintenance, assuming that it loses 8.8% of its value every year, I want to know, if that continues, what will the value of the car be in 26 years? There are 2 ways of doing this problem. 2 ways. For the project, I only ask that you do one of the ways. But there are 2 ways to handle this part. And in order to express the 2 ways of handling this part, I am going to split my paper into 2. Let me actually write out both ways of doing this calculation. And then I will explain how or why they exist. So here's the first way right here. Okay. I'm just going to leave that there temporarily, and then I want to explain how and why these 2 calculations both technically work. What I'm using is the same formula that we've been using from the beginning of today. I am using y equals a parentheses 1 minus r to the x power. That's what I'm using. Both calculations are technically valid. Question. What does this number represent? When? But specifically what year? Okay, this is the initial value of the car in 1994. What the heck is this?
How many years it's been, like, because it's been 27 years since today, and you're asking how much it would be in 26 years. So.
An additional 26 years from 1994. If you go 26 years from today, it will have been 53 years since that initial value. Whereas over here, what the heck is this? The price of the car today in the year 2021. And this would be 26 years from today. Exactly. That's why I'm saying both of these calculations will technically produce similar answers. Not the exact same answer, but similar answers. Not all years are not all years are created equal. Not all years are created equal. This is assuming 8.8% every year. This is the 53 years, which includes the first 27 that we did, plus an additional 26. And this is only taking into account the latter 26 years. Before I answer that, let me show you the answer to both of these calculations before I answer that. Because looking at these answers might clarify what you just asked. So hold on. 11,865 parentheses 1 minus 0.088 raised to the 53 power gives you approximately $89.95. I had to round that because money is rounded to 2 decimal places. Let me do the other calculation. The other calculation, 995 parentheses 1 minus 0.088 to the 26th power gives you $90.72. The question that you asked before was about which one would be more accurate. And you suggested that the second one would be more accurate. In reality, they're just off by 77 cents. So it doesn't really matter. That's why I wanted to show the answers to this in order to clarify what you asked. It's a good question. It's a very good question. Because yes, obviously, the first 27 years did do the most damage to the price. But as long as these... Yeah. It can still lose value, obviously, you know. But now here's the thing. For your... I know. But keep in mind, the car's like 53 years old. It's basically a scrap heap at that point, you know. You're literally reading my mind. Probably because you helped your friend.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we sat there the whole night and like we went through and we were like, okay, 26 years, 58 years.
I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. When will the car be worth 0?
Oh.
I mean, well, like, context, like, the car ever was 0? Like, literally.
Because it's still,
It's like more.
by the time it's,
I agree.
you can still get it for like parts or like scrap.
Yes, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. So there's a couple of ways of going about this, but I'm going to give you the definitive way, and the way that I'm going to explain it to you is probably the way your friend had to do it on the project. When will the car be worth $0? In reality, you guys are right. The car will never be worth exactly 0. It'll always be worth something, right? Yeah, a percentage of a penny. It'll always be worth something more than 0. the value of the car will never actually equal precisely $0. However, we round money to how many decimal places? We round it to 2 decimal places. There will come a point where the value of the car will dip down so low that when you round it to 2 places, it'll round down to 0. So let me go back to my calculator real quick and let me show you something. Because this actually does go to the next part that I wanted to show you. Zooming in, zooming in, zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. Here we go. Come on, focus. There we go. I'm going to change my mode real quick to this thing called float because I want to round it to 2 places. What that means is, like, you guys know 2/3, right? What's the decimal for 2/3? The decimal for 2/3? Well, technically, if you round it, but it's supposed to be 0.6 repeating, right? But as he just said, if I round it to 2 places, ba-bow, 0.67. But it's supposed to be, if I float it, 0.6 repeating, and then the calculator rounds it. So I floated at 2 because I want to show you what money does. If you had a penny, clearly it's worth a penny. If you had less than a penny, it rounds up to a penny. 0.06 rounds up to a penny. 0.005 rounds up to a penny. 0.004, it rounds down. But check this out. 0.0045 also rounds down. 0.0049 also rounds down. 0.004999 also rounds down. See, 0.005 is the threshold. It is the dividing marker. 0.005, a half a penny, is the dividing marker between whether you round up to a penny or you round down to nothing. That is the dividing factor. Did you guys know that we used to have a half penny in the United States? Yes, it was the 1800s, really. I don't know what it looked like off the top of my head, but it was like a half penny. Yeah, they existed. Yeah, so to speak. Do you know why certain coins have ridges in them? No. Coins have ridges in them. It's actually a product of a bygone era where coins were actually made out of the metal that they said they were, like they were made out of gold or silver. And they would take the gold and they would actually like file down all the way around. They would file down like an outer layer of the rim and form that back together and have like more gold, you know? So you could like have like a $5 gold piece. You could file down around the edges where it's like it gets a little bit smaller, but it's imperceptible. And you could take the shavings off of all these $5 gold pieces and basically make like a brand new $5 gold piece. Yeah, it's pretty sick. Well, the ridges were there because then if somebody attempted to file it down, you would be able to tell very easily. No, the original coin would shrink. The original coin would shrink and get smaller, but if you held it, it'd be like, oh, it's just wear and tear. Because you've seen coins nowadays, you know? But anyway, 0.005 is the threshold, because if you actually set it equal to 0, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. If you actually attempted to set this thing equal to 0 for that question that you asked me, and attempted the calculation, it would not work. So here comes the big question. Where's my marker?
This is like super late, but when you're done explaining this, can you go back to like the initial equation we had? Because I never finished chopping down.
Oh, sure. I'll let you have these in a moment. Let me write down this question. When will the car be worth $0? As we've talked about before, the car is never actually going to be equal to exactly $0. So instead, this is the setup that I would have you do. That's the setup that I would have you do, and that does warrant a little bit of an explanation. So I'll need these back. There we go. 0.005 I've talked about. But notice that I put in this for the quote unquote initial value. I put in 995 because that's the value of the car when? Today. Nope, today. Not initially, today. That's what they're selling it for. This is the rate at which it's decaying at. And X, well, that's time. That will answer the question of when. If we let 995 be this value right here, when we get our answer, all we will have to do is take the answer and add it to the year 2021. Because this is the value today. It's pretty crazy. Question. You guys are very used to saying 2021, right? Do you not call it 2021? You don't say 2021? Well, actually, let me ask. I have a better way of putting it. What year were you born? You say 2004? 2000, but you say it like that?
Yeah, I feel like once we hit like.
You don't say 2003?
No, it's weird. We're like 2020. I feel like once we hit like 2015, 2016, everyone stopped saying like 2010, 2011, and I started saying like 2019, 2020.
Well, I'll tell you that, you know. No, I understand, but like if it were 1915, you wouldn't say 1915, you'd say 1915, right? If it were 1909, you would say 1909 and not 1909, correct? Actually, they wouldn't even say 1909 back then. You know what they would say? 2009 or something like that. Anyway, back to this. Not that I was alive back then. We need logarithms. No, we don't. Sleep for the weak. Sleep when you're dead. We need logarithms because we are solving for an exponent. Almost. You got to do one thing before you get to that step that you're talking about. Logarithms fall under the guise of exponents because in the SADMAP-PEMDAS argument, logarithms fall under exponents. Before you do the logarithm step, you need to do this. Before you do the logarithm step, you need to do that.
I'm confused by why is 0.005.
Well,
Because we're still using the same equation we started with, right?
kind of, so to speak. Well, here's the thing. A is what we refer to as our initial value, what it starts at. And I would like to start counting from the year 2021, which is the value today. Y is the resulting value. And the question is, how long until it reaches $0?
Okay.
That's the resulting value. Yeah. Now, 0.005, yes, rounds up to a penny, yes. But once it passes this point and gets to 0.0049999, it rounds down. I got to divide by 995 first. Now you're talking about logarithms. This is where logarithms will come into play. What's the base on my exponential? What is the base that is underneath the exponent? Yep, 1 minus 0.088. So the log on the exponential is the same, the base on the exponential is the same base that is on the logarithm. Logarithms get what by themselves? Logarithms allow you to solve for what? Exponent, which is why the exponent is by itself. I understand. Well, let me ask you this question. You ready for this? Okay. Obviously, you understand the concept of squaring a number, correct? If I said 3 squared, you would tell me 9. And I would ask why, and you would say because 3 times 3 is 9. Is that fair? So I say, what's 3 squared? And you explain it by defining what an exponent does. 3 times 3 is 9. Now pay attention to that explanation. Second question, what is the square root of 9? And you would immediately say 3. And I would say why? Yeah, but most people would explain it by saying the exact same thing because 3 times 3 is 9, right? It's the inverse. If I said, what is 3 to the x power equals 27, people would tell me 3 because 3 cubed is 27. But if I asked them the inverse question, hey, what's log base 3 of 27? Not square 3, but raised to the power. Yes. So, same concept here. This is our equation. What exponent would you raise this crazy parentheses to? Yep. What exponent would you raise this crazy parentheses to in order to get this resulting fraction? Well, the only way I'm going to answer that question is by logarithms. Remember we did the 27th root earlier? The 27th root does not make conceptual sense to me, but I recognize it if I define it as a 27th power. Oh, I'm taking a 27th root because something raised to the 27th power gave me this answer. So if I take a 27th root, it will invert it. If I take a logarithm, it will invert it, allowing me to solve for the x. Logarithms are not easy. They are not easy to conceptualize. They aren't. You have to think of them, as you said earlier, you have to think of them as the inverse to exponentials. That's the best way to kind of rationalize what the heck they do. Oh, logarithms. You know, back in the day before calculators were readily available, do you know what people in the 60s had to use? Logarithm tables. Literally like pages and pages of numbers written out in a table that allowed them to calculate logarithms. I could show you one day. Today, I don't have time today because I got to finish this up. But are you familiar with a slide rule? Slide rules worked in a very similar way, except it was a more compact way of putting it together.
It's so crazy to think that like the inventions that people made like light out of nothing, electricity.
Electricity existed without humans, though.
I mean, like to discover
To harness it.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you something, and then I'll finish up this problem. You see this calculator that I'm holding? Harness. Yeah, but you see this calculator that I'm holding? We take it for granted most days. People in the chat, this is what I'm looking at. We take it for granted most days. We kind of hold them. We have them on our phones. No. Listen. We have them on our phones. We have them on our computers. We take them for granted. We've had them for years. This calculator, I used this type of calculator back in the 90s. This calculator has more computing power than the Apollo 11 space mission. But it's a fact. It has more computing power. Not that it has size or power like a rocket ship, but computing power. They had computers back in the Apollo 11 space mission. This thing is faster than theirs. Yeah. We take it for granted. Got to solve this. So I'm going to go to my calculator. And I'm going to hit math. And I'm going to go to my very favorite log base, which we've been there a number of times. Log base allows you to type in exactly as you see it. There is my base. And there is the fraction inside of the parentheses. Chapow. That is the number of years that it will take for this 1994 Toyota Prism to drop down to $0. Now, keep in mind, that's not the year, clearly.
132 years from today.
Exactly. Because we put 995 here, we were counting from today. So, get my little marker here and write this information down. X is approximately 132.5 years, or the value will reach $0 between, and now I'm going to add that to 2021, mind you. It will reach $0 between the years 2153 and 2154. Somewhere in that time frame. On the project, of course, there are other things that you are going to have to do. There is a bit of a reflection that I have you do on the project as well, in terms of cars and our thoughts about them and what they mean for our futures and whatnot, and how much money we actually put into them and things of that nature. I am going to be assigning you this project on Friday. On Friday, I will also talk about the house because I want to walk you through how to navigate a realtor website. Yes. And you're all going to have different houses and different cars.
Can we get that? Do we pick our house?
Yes, and you have to get it approved by me. Yeah.
Big house.
You will. There's going to be a Google sheet that I'm going to let you guys view where you can check to make sure no one has taken the car or house that you're asking for, and I will update it regularly. But keep in mind, as I talked about at the beginning of class, you have to have the evidence to show that the house has gained value or that the car has lost value. I believe, and I got to double check this, I believe that the car has to be at least 3 years old, and the house you have to have, now obviously you may not know the original value that it was sold for because it might have been like the 1800s or some junk like that, but you can find the oldest price available, which again, I will talk more about that on Friday when I present that information. Yeah, you could. But keep in mind, Zillow is similar to Kelley Blue Book. Zillow gives you the fair market value of the home, not necessarily what they're selling it for. You know what I'm saying? Because the thing is, it's like Zillow, now I'm not going to show you this, but if you looked up my house on Zillow, the price is like, continually moving. And I'm like, how does Zillow know? Number one, my house has not been on the market. They don't know what I'm doing to the inside of the house. They don't know how well I'm maintaining it. You know what I'm saying? Zillow is just fair market value, not what it's being sold for. So that's all I'm saying. So I was going to tell you what happened to my Prius, because I got a few minutes here. I got about 3 minutes.
Was it silver?
No, it was like a turquoise blue. Yeah. My wife loved that car.
What do you got now?
I drive a 05 Honda Civic.
Now that.
Yeah, it's kind of falling apart. It's 16 years old. But let me tell you the story, though. Drove a 2002 Toyota Prius. We loved that car. Like I said, we drove it to Boston and back on 1 tank of gas. So this was November of 2013. November of 2013, I took the day off because I was going to a friend's wedding. And I figured, why would I show up in school for like an hour and then have to leave to go get ready for the wedding? So my wife and I, we were driving in front of Southern Regional around 2 p.m. because we were on our way to go pick up a friend before we drove to the wedding, which was in North Jersey. On our way to go pick up the friend in front of Southern Regional, it was about 2 o'clock, and the traffic was pretty bad because Southern had let out and Barnegat had let out, so people are all over the place. So we're coming up to a stop, doing our thing, whatever, and then I can see in the rear view mirror, there is a big white truck behind us that lurches. And I'm like, I knew immediately what was about to happen. I braced my wife, and the thing slammed into the back of the Prius, crunching the trunk all the way in. I know. Long story short about the Prius, no, I have more to the story. But long story short about the end of the Prius was totaled, meaning that the cost of the repairs was more than the value of the car. You know, yeah. So, but what happened was, so I asked my wife, is she okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? She says she's fine. No, she was kind of in a little bit of shock, but she told me that she was fine. I got out of the car, and there's this guy standing in front of his truck on the phone, and he's like cursing up a storm. Oh, my truck. Oh, I can't believe this happened to my truck. Who's telling the story here? Let me tell the story. I asked the guy if he is okay, and he's still like, cursing up a storm, and I literally have to yell at him, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he's going on about the girl. And I'm like, "What are you talking about, the girl?" And he points to behind his truck, and there's a third car. I look at the third car, and there's a girl in the front seat with her head buried in her hands. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I walk over to the girl. I immediately recognize her. Now, mind you, this happened in 2013, okay? This girl's a Barnegat High School student, okay? I asked, I'm trying to talk to her, and she's like going on and on and on about, and she basically admitted to me in that moment in her shock that she was like reaching for something, possibly a phone or something else, I don't know, but she was reaching for something, took her eyes off the road and slammed into the truck, and then the truck slammed into me. So I have to verbally walk her through, okay, put the car in park, turn off the engine. I had to walk her through this because she's like literally in shock at this moment. And I have to walk her over to the side of the car, side of the road in front of Southern, and all the cops are showing up. Now in that moment, again, I know who she was. I didn't know if she knew who I was, because I had been at Barnegat for like maybe 3 or 4 years at that point, and I never taught her in a class. I knew her brother, but and so I just kind of, did her thing. But mainly the reason why I verbally walked her through that, because I didn't want her to drive off. Her car was fine. Dude's truck was fine. My Prius was totaled. Yeah. Here's the kicker to the whole story. As the cops show up, again, I'm trying to be very discreet, and I'm trying to be very quiet about this because I don't want the girl to freak out. But my wife was 3 months pregnant at the time. Yeah. Now, baby was fine. But the baby was fine, but I had to tell the cops because I needed an ambulance to come and check her out. Long story short, she knew who I was and actually introduced me to her parents before she drove off. Yeah. Oh, her insurance paid for the damages, but it wasn't enough to cover the repairs of the car. Yeah. Anyway, leave a comment in the chat if you haven't already. What do you mean hatchback?
Is it like?
It's like a sedan. It's just a small sedan, dude. Yeah.
Hatchback, or do people turn them into like sports cars? You know what I'm saying?